So the first topic I think we're going to get into is going to be the Dave Chappelle special, because Dave Chappelle came out with his last Netflix special, and it was interesting. It was pretty interesting. He made a lot of people mad.
It was more like it was less like stand up and more like just
There was a point he was trying to make.
a conversation or a talk, like a TED talk type thing. I don't know. It just seemed
Let's sit
less,
down and let's not hash this out, but let's get to the bottom of this.
yeah.
He straight up did some Chaucer shit though, where he
What's up,
spoke
Master
about
Blade?
something while setting himself up to not take too much damage. Like
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know if you know much about Chaucer, but he used to criticize the king without actually talking about the king. You know what I mean? Like he used to set it up to where I was like, oh, it's just a story, man. Like it doesn't really mean you, although there are a lot of things that kind of seem like it to you. And so with Dave Chappelle, I feel like with a lot of the things he did when he set up his stories to get his points across, like there was emotional and logical defenses in his arguments when he kind of stated his stuff. So I thought it was fucking. It was like spectacular to watch, just kind of like a master of eloquence. It was ridiculous.
I agree with that. But if he made it up, if he was stating facts, like if all those things that incidences or whatever that he was speaking on actually happened, then there would be more of an explanation than even trying to. But I get what you're saying. The way he went about explaining it was like he humanized it. He made you connect with it first, and then he made it hard to be critical of his point of view. But
Yeah, exactly.
they still found a way to be critical of his point of view.
Where you want to read some of these?
Which
little
I think is
headlines?
actually a bad thing, though, man, because I feel like that's like a
Almost feeds
he's
into what
showing.
saying.
Yeah, exactly. He's humanized himself so he couldn't be demonized, and now the onslaught attack he already said. He's like, "Look, I told you this was gonna happen," and you're just like, "Oh shit!" Like he's totally right. Like you can actually see the unbridled attack. Like instead of them just being empathetic, so
Yeah,
it's a little
very true.
intense.
I thought it was. I thought the story he told of the transgender comedian was crazy. I thought the way he identified the I forgot. I think it was
I
like Daphne or something like that.
Yeah,
As
I
more of
actually
a
questioned if she
comedian.
was real, but
I
before I
looked it
saw
up
the
too.
No, yeah, I looked
yeah,
it up.
she
There's a
is.
picture. I saw
I
a
looked it
picture
up
of her.
also. Yeah.
I found her Twitter
Before I
and
actually
everything.
saw it, I
And
saw a report of her, and that's actually the reason why I even saw it. Because I was just like, "What the fuck? Why do I have to like investigate a human being to watch this Netflix special?" So, kind of went into it with that in mind.
and
Because
the whole
Dave's about to make sure he got this point
and then the
across.
whole time I'm not thinking. I'm not thinking. You know who should take notes?
What's up, Dungeon Master?
Wendy Williams should take notes. Now, if you're gonna introduce us to somebody that's dead before the story and not tell us they're dead, you see what Dave Chappelle did? Do you remember what Wendy
Yeah,
Williams did with the TikTok star?
yeah. Moving on. Like, imagine he'd have done that shit, dude.
Oh, that was
Hell
terrible.
no, dude.
Dude, that shit was wild. But no, yeah, like the whole time he was identifying her more from her comedic qualities than for any gender.
Because that's her
or
aspirations,
sex.
her
Yeah,
dreams, her
yeah.
ambitions. Like she wanted to be a comedian, and that's why Dave Chappelle said told the story about opening up for him, bringing her on stage, and how she was she was trash. But when he actually got to talk, she's like, "Hey, you're actually funny. Let's see if I can help you out and get you here." And he realized like she actually got a thing for this.
So what do you think Dave Chappelle's point was? If what was his point?
I think his point was kind of like a peace treaty in a sense. Like he is on the defense because he feels attacked, and then I think he also wants to point out that like they're on the attack right now, like full force. You know what I mean? And so he kind of was trying to just lower tension, while at the same time, like a lot of people feel like they can't criticize ploys that basically radicals on Twitter employ, and he's against it, and he's like, look, like it even cost collateral damage, which is Daphne, and the whole story around
Who
it.
was supposed to be one of your own. Who
Exactly,
you guys
and it's just
viciously
like,
attacked on social
yeah,
media.
it's like you guys just don't care because all you see is red. Like you just don't care about what you're doing because you feel self-righteous,
He
and
po-
I think that was his whole point, where he even talks about, he has like one quote where he says, taking a man's livelihood is just as good as killing him, which is kind of, intense, but in
It's
some
true.
senses, like for certain people, yeah, it is true.
And he pops it off with a point that I've been saying for a long time, and it's crazy how, I mean, I guess like the jealousy thing he was talking about was like, yo, they got straight to business when it came to LGBT, issues. Like, we are addressing these shits every day, big steps every day. So it was just like wild to see when compared to other social issues or other social things we have going on, how
higher they are on the hierarchy of things.
how much priority this got
priority.
as far as like what we see as our daily, what we digest of it daily, how it's put in front of us, how it's, what I'm saying, advertised and marketed and all that stuff. Not the community, but the actual problems that the community faces. So it was just, he made a couple points. I understand how somebody could say that he just used the experiences or whatever as a veil for the jokes. But my counter to that would be, there wasn't many jokes. I laughed at the observations he made, but there wasn't. The joke was already there in the fact that it existed.
Any
He
joke
just
I feel
kinda
like he did made it, from my recollection, was towards Daphne. He used Daphne as his.
She was the punchline.
Yeah,
Because every
exactly.
time he would say like something, he would be like, "And she stunk," or "She was bad." And that break in his story, it was just fucking funny, man. Because it would make me giggle as like he's telling some serious shit.
But as
And
far
he's
as
like,
him saying she stinks, that's not on subject of the LGBT.
Yeah.
I know,
That's
that's what I'm
more
saying.
of
That
the
was his.
comedic.
That
That's
was
the,
his. He was, anytime he made a joke, he utilized Daphne to
so
lubricate the conversation.
So then my question, I agree, but my question is, where was the jokes about the LGBT people?
well, he did his best to keep him out. I mean, that's kind of the premise, even before
He
he
was
set it
trying
up.
to
When he
So
was
then
just
where
like,
would the backlash be
yeah.
then? Why would there be backlash is my question.
Because it's in opposition to a movement. You know what I mean? So they are retorting, especially too, because
Okay, he did make a couple
he
jokes.
says some. He doesn't necessarily make jokes. What
he
I
did.
think they're upset about is that he makes statements.
Yeah, I was
Like
about to
when
say
he
that.
says gender is a fact. That is a statement in direct opposition to the movement. And that, I think, was too, like, one of the biggest things. And even
Okay, that's
the
true. He did
resistance,
say that.
when he mentions like stop punching down on my people, that is a resistance. That's fighting words. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So he is in direct opposition to the movement, and that's why I think he's getting backlash.
And okay, so I agree with that. And then also, like, even in my mind, I remember his little feminist part where he was like, "Yeah, all they need is a man to lead." You know what I'm saying? So he did
did
crack
make
That was
jokes.
a joke for sure.
And another
Yeah.
joke about the they thing, and we're talking about one they or many
many-
theys. Like,
exactly.
He did make. You're right.
So,
He did make some
he
jokes.
did make jokes.
Bro, that shit, that one day or many days, that made me laugh so fucking hard because it reminded me of Half Baked Dave Chappelle. Like he
yeah.
instantly into that character, and I was just like, bro, this is like the Dave Chappelle I remember seeing every fucking day on Comedy Central. That shit was so funny, man.
No, but that makes sense. No, that makes sense. But I don't know. I just felt like it was more open-ended questions than it was like, I just felt like it was just, this is why I feel this way. If you want to converse about why I shouldn't, we can have that conversation. But it almost felt like fuck all the jokes, fuck all the other stand-ups I've done. This is why I'm saying, this is why I'm even writing on this issue. And it kind of, to me, was just like, okay, cool. If you wanted to write, and I think it would be more, and this is my opinion, I'm not telling any trans person or anybody in the community this is how you deal with the issue, but I think it would be more tasteful for these bigger publications, instead of writing like smear campaigns or this and that, if they had transgender members of their staff should have written responses to answer the questions, or more, you know what I'm saying? It would have been more tasteful that way. It would have began the conversation to me. And so it was just like, we're gonna
I
talk
think
about
that was
now.
his whole point, though. Thing is, we can't have a conversation about this because I think he even said in the stand-up, like, you can't even crack jokes about this. Like, we have to be able to joke about this stuff. Like, we joke about everything: white people, black people. He made some white people jokes too in that particular stand-up. Like, we have to be able to make jokes about you. If you're off limits from making jokes, then there's no
real
conversation we can be that can be had.
You're not gonna grow, and that goes to what
I think that was the moral of the entire thing, where it was just like him for 50 minutes trying to humanize all parties so that the conversation can be had.
Yeah.
I think that's why that's why he ended it too by claiming Daphne as she wasn't part of your community, she was part of mine. She was a comedian. Because I think that's the point. Like, and I don't want to assume this with Dave Chappelle because I don't think this was apparent. This could be me being a little biased in my opinion of it, but I think he was trying to say like you put your transgender or your LGBT identity at the forefront when that probably shouldn't be at the forefront, because I think
not the only way to identify
exactly for Daphne
being.
her main identity that she was able to be comfortable in and accepted in and be, I don't know if this is true, but I would assume feeling that level of warmth and welcoming was being a comedian. She got to meet Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle gave her opportunities. She got to get to know these people through being a comedian. Dave Chappelle even said in his stand-up, she was actually funny. She just needed a little bit of guidance, and that's what Dave Chappelle did. That's why Dave Chappelle said she was a comedian.
No, I agree with that. It's just weird. I don't know. I enjoyed it. It wasn't like I said, for me, really funny. It was more just, I don't know, kind of the inner workings of Dave Chappelle's mind, which was kind of nice to see. I mean, and when anybody's that good at something, it's just nice to see them perform. You know what I'm saying? So it's just refreshing to see him on stage. As far as Backlash, I already said how I feel about that. I just don't think that he came there. I don't think he came there with
ill intent,
and I also don't think this is okay. The other point of view of this is Dave Chappelle has such a distaste for that community that he would spend time and money repeatedly just to bash them publicly. Like that's the opposite. Because he could talk about anything else. Dave Chappelle doesn't need this topic to be funny. And it goes to a point that we've all talked about on the podcast, and it's when it comes to like certain communities, it's important for that the community to hold itself accountable. That allows for you to integrate with other communities. Like, for example, speak from black community. With black community, when you see just in a small space, if you see like a black person correcting another black person in something, that person watching that or seeing that, maybe, you know what I'm saying, it just lets you know there are people that are accountable and that it won't get too far. And if it does, there's people in that community that you can converse with. That's the most important part. There are people that we can talk with. Like when it just seems like we can't even talk at all, then it's just like, how do you expect proper integration? It's just almost you telling us how to
progress
accept
overall,
just tell us how to accept this thing, and I'm not talking about any specific issue, but tell us how to accept this thing,
or
and then that's it. Yeah. So it's just, I don't know. So it was just, I didn't like that it was painted as him just using a veil to be transphobic and
hateful or all that stuff. Yeah,
and all that
I don't think
stuff.
so. What are you saying, Doc?
Yeah, I think he was just trying to point out tribalism, like John was saying.
Yeah, I
where
think I agree.
Everyone's going into the groups. There is one joke he said that I was like, that's brilliant, because it actually made me think. Like I had to contemplate it, and I was playing catch up to the next bit. Was when he talks about the I don't know if she was lesbian. I guess she was lesbian or something. But the girl he fights in the bar.
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
The boxer girl.
Yep.
Yeah, he says one thing at the end where he's just like, "I beat the fucking toxic masculinity out of her," and I fucking cracked up on that shit because it kind of goes to show you. Yeah, it's like it's not toxic masculinity isn't innately male. It's a state of mind that like just somebody who goes into a hyper aggressive like, I don't know, fucking chimp mode just enters, and a woman can do it too, apparently. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's true. Like I've seen people mimic it or try to do it, but it's just a state of mind. It's not something that's, like I said, innately male.
It goes to the conversation we had last week about that, not last week, a couple weeks ago, about that TikTok girl talking about masculinity, how it's like a comfortability. Even when a guy is obviously being over masculine like that, where you could call it toxic masculinity, you can tell like this guy's compensating. He's insecure. He needs us around him to know he's tough. Why?
Yeah, it's because he feels small. Or they feel small, you know.
It's a small human being.
All right.
Dave, you the GOAT. I think you should go on tours, just doing speaking events, and just actually like engaging with college students, engaging with public crowds, and actually answering questions, almost like town halls. If you could travel and just do town halls, and I think it would be really.
Hey man, make sure you send him an email and then send the link to this clip.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I feel like Dave at this point in time is a philosopher of our nation. You know how like the Greeks had Plato and they had I can't believe I lost him. He was right at the tip of my tongue.
Plato, Aristotle.
That's what I was thinking about. Yeah, Socrates and stuff like that. You know, nations, especially great nations, they produce philosophers and stuff like that. The people who spend time to sit around thinking and contemplating and stuff and how to express their ideas eloquently. And I think, you know, it's funny because, you know, we're a capitalistic country. So in a weird way, being a comedian is a monetizing way to be a philosopher. 100%. And so I actually think that Dave Chappelle is fastly becoming one of the great philosophers of our age. And as we move forward, like we might have to look back at him and really see how he was commentating on basically the zeitgeist, like the theme, the vibe that everyone was feeling at the same time. And
I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I would rather put Jordan Peterson in that category of greatest philosopher of our time.
No,
but
the reason why is you value Jordan Peterson's words. Because
I don't disvalue Dave Chappelle though.
No. Okay, but you value it because of where you're at. Dave Chappelle, do you see who he's reaching? Do you see who he's making think these thoughts? That's the difference between him and Jordan Peterson. That's where his value comes in.
You don't think he has the same reach?
No.
Message might be the difference.
No. Jordan Peterson doesn't have the same reach. As in, I can put Jordan Peterson on and Dave Chappelle on for a regular
honestly, that's an interesting conversation though.
But you know what I'm saying? But a regular blue collar worker,
that would be actually
somebody who maybe doesn't have the vocabulary to keep up with Jordan Peterson. For example, this Dave Chappelle is more of a philosopher. The real reason he's lived more life, real life. I'm telling you, this is Dave Chappelle from Half Baked. This is Dave Chappelle that smoked weed. This is Dave Chappelle that went to Africa to run away from whatever it is. Jordan Peterson has sat and thought, which is correct, and there's not a single thing I can disagree. But I'm talking about actually experience, touch the grain, touch the soil of like the experience of these things, not just the thought. Jordan Peterson is so well thought out and so well studied that it's almost inhuman. Dave Chappelle is the more human, more palatable option and that's why I say, like, yeah, we can put him in that category, but there's no way I would say greater than because of.
I was trying to say greater than,
because of who he can reach versus who Jordan Peterson can reach. Like, Jordan Peterson isn't probably reaching people who English might not be their first language. Jordan Peterson might not be reaching people who don't care who haven't graduated high school. Jordan Peterson may not be reaching those people, and those are the people that make up. And I'm not saying America hasn't graduated high school. I'm saying regular middle class people aren't.
The reason why I agree with you is because Jordan Peterson's content is kind of, I don't want to say hard to follow, but it just takes a little more of your attention, a little more of your energy. Like, you actually have to
follow. For the average person, it'd be hard to follow.
More of a lecture for sure.
Yeah.
It'd be hard, exactly. Whereas his stories bring you in. And you're learning the whole time while questioning things the whole time while being 100%
He makes the thoughts simple enough to the point where it's humorous.
And you're engaged. You have to engage in listening for Jordan Peterson because you want to learn. Here, you're being entertained and engaged. That's why you're engaging. And you're learning he's sneaking that shit in. You know what I'm saying? He's sneaking that shit on the back end. And I agree. You know, Jordan Peterson. I don't think there's a more well thought out human being on this earth than Jordan Peterson. I believe he should mediate every debate ever. And honestly speaking, Dave Chappelle would be a hell of a mediator too. That'd be fun to see. The presidential debate,
Oh,
Jordan
gosh.
Peterson, and then Dave Chappelle. That'd be
Heck no.
fantastic. But yeah, I get
That
you.
would be funny. All
Well,
right.
I kind of think of it like as in multiple philosophers, because multiple philosophers can exist at the same time. Like if you look at ancient China, Confucius and Lao Tzu were at the exact same time, and they both had differing opinions over each other's core philosophies. And
Hey,
so I
Malcolm
can
X,
see
Martin
like
Luther.
Dave Chappelle. Yeah, exactly. I can see Chappelle and Peterson, different approaches, some similarities, but maybe even like different cultural backgrounds and stuff that
Like Dave
differentiate
Chappelle would
everybody.
get me to listen to Jordan Peterson. Like he'd make me think of an issue that Jordan Peterson probably spoke about. And then
I feel
I'd
like
get-
Dave Chappelle does listen to Jordan and takes his
possibly,
yeah, he takes him into account.
possibly.
His thoughts.
Yo, you made it to the end. Really appreciate it. Thanks for watching Fake Deep Thinking. If you like the show, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and to share. We really appreciate everything and appreciate you. So take it easy. Peace.
Peace.
Have a good day.